This is Good Morning Indiana, working for you.
Today, the man accused of killing Boone County Deputy Jacob Pickett will be in court. What's expected to happen when he goes before the judge.
Plus, another day of storm cleanup will begin again. The issue's still facing Hoosiers after 4 tornadoes touched down on Monday.
And keeping kids safe as they head to school each day. The new school bus safety bill Governor Holcomb will sign into law today. Thanks for watching Good Morning Indiana. I'm Nicole Griffin.
And I'm Meredith Barrick. Meteorologist Todd Clausen here on this Storm Team 6 alert day. Not a noise anyone wants to hear, especially with what we went through on Monday night.
Yeah, you know, we just can't break this pattern we're in. It's basically, you know, you have these storms roll through and then the sun comes out, and some of you have a completely sunny day.
Yeah.
And some of you have a day where there's a lot of rain in the forecast. And this morning we're starting off already with some thunderstorms moving through parts of the area. And this morning they're to the north, but look what's lined up off to our west. But let's focus on what's happening right now here in our area. We have this heavy rain right along US 31 as you work your way south from Peru. But look at all those lightning strikes coming out of Clinton County, pushing into Tipton County right now. And this is going to cross right over US 31. And then we have some heavier downpours here from Advance through Lebanon and then eventually over towards the Zionsville area. But this heavier batch of rain and the thunderstorms, which is not severe this morning, which is good news, heading towards Cicero here at 519, then eventually over towards Elwood as we get a little closer to the bottom of the area. But there's plenty more shower activity off to our west as we'll be streaming through. We are under the slight risk for severe weather once again today, so there is that potential. Temperatures this morning in the 60s and 70s for the most part. As we work our way throughout the course of the day today, I'm going to keep the showers and storms in the forecast in all day parts. Just know there's a lot of dry hours mixed in here as well, with temperatures again climbing up into the low to mid 80s. Lana.
All right, thank you, Todd. Not too much happening, but we do still have some closures related to that storm damage up in Pendleton, southbound I-69 exit ramp to State Road 38, as well as US 36 between Maple Street and Pendleton Avenue. So plan ahead with that. Let's take a look at some overnight road work that's underway over here on our northwest side. You can see I-465 at West 86th Street. Those flashing lights are in dot crews, but the good news is it's still early in the morning, so everything is moving along just fine. I'll keep an eye on this area for you as we get into rush hour.
Elena, thank you. Today, the man accused of killing Boone County Deputy Jacob Pickett will be sentenced and could end up spending his life behind bars.
Today's change of plea hearing comes 14 months after the K-9 officer was killed during a pursuit. Our Aaron Lish is live in Lebanon this morning with what is expected to happen in court this morning. Aaron.
Good morning. So Anthony Baumgart is likely to go to prison for life and not face the death penalty if he accepts this plea bargain. This is after he was charged for the murder of Deputy Jacob Pickett. Baumgart was originally expected to go to trial this next year, but he will be in court this morning because the state did file a motion yesterday. According to court documents, Baumgart can plead guilty in the murder of Deputy Pickett and spend the rest of his life in prison without parole. In exchange for the death penalty will be off the table. Baumgart is 21 and accused of shooting Deputy Pickett in 2018 after running away from law enforcement here in Lebanon. He then shot the 34-year-old deputy before getting shot by a police officer. Shortly afterwards, Baumgart said he had no remorse for Pickett's death. The big thing is he still needs to accept this deal and sign this document to accept this plea. We will be actually in court this morning, and I will give you those updates if you follow us online, through social media, and on air. I'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
Aaron, thank you. Today, extra police officers and counselors will once again be on hand at Noblesville West Middle School as officials investigate a social media threat made over the weekend. The threat comes just a little more than a year after a shooting at the school injured a student and teacher. As this school year comes to a close, school officials are now asking students to leave large bags and backpacks at home as a safety precaution. With just a few days left before summer break, parents we talked to say the effects of the school shooting are still lingering.
There isn't a parent who had a kid at the school that day who can't tell you about how there are now children who startle visibly when someone grabs the door handle of their classroom, children who are in counseling.
Steve Rogers, who you heard from there, is part of the group Noblesville Stands Together. They are pushing for safety changes and gun violence prevention. After this most recent threat, the group released a statement saying, in part, quote, "It is absolutely critical that Governor Holcomb and other state leaders do more to send a clear message to our children that they support them. We need a comprehensive plan to address school violence."
This morning, some residents are still waiting for the power to come back on and cleaning up after 4 tornadoes touched down in Indiana on Memorial Day. In Pendleton, officials are slowly getting residents back onto roads that were shut down because of all the downed trees and power lines. The Red Cross is still on hand, operating a shelter for anyone who needs it at Pendleton Heights High School. Right now, crews are still working to get power 100% restored, and then they will turn to helping homeowners clean up.
Our main concern is getting the power back on. So, but you know, even after that's done, you still, you know, all the homeowners, the trees that are on the houses and cars and all that. I mean, there's a lot of work here to do.
The town of Pendleton is expected to release ways people can help out or volunteer later today. We'll bring you those details once we have them.
Today, Governor Holcomb will sign a bill aimed at protecting kids getting on and off the school bus. The new law comes less than a year after 3 kids were killed crossing the street in Fulton County to get on their bus. Governor Holcomb will sign the legislation that will increase the penalties for drivers who do not stop when a school bus stop arm is out. The law also sets up new requirements for school officials to review all bus routes and try to limit stops that have kids crossing streets and county highways.
This morning, investigators are still waiting on a cause of death as they investigate a missing man who turned up dead inside of a suitcase. The remains were found near a creek on South Villa Avenue Monday afternoon. Officials identified the remains as 56-year-old Larry Terry. He was reported missing by a relative back on March 12th. Again, how Terry died or ended up in the suitcase has not been determined at this time.
Some good news from the Indianapolis Zoo. The elephant diagnosed with a deadly virus is on the mend this morning. The Indianapolis Zoo says 13-year-old Kadar is back outside and now even roaming in his large yard. Last month, he was diagnosed with the EEHV virus that killed 2 other elephants at the zoo. They say the often deadly virus is now nearly undetectable in Kadar. All right, it is 5:07 right now, and it is a Storm Team 6 alert day, Todd.
Yeah, once again, we're dealing with storms throughout the area. We'll kind of be dealing with them off and on today and really tomorrow at times throughout the entire day. Can't pinpoint one time frame like yesterday when it was only in the afternoon hours, because already some of these storms are moving in. Nothing severe currently happening across the area, but some heavy rain and a lot of lightning pushing into Tipton right now. You could probably expect some gusty winds, maybe even a little bit of hail with that system. And then there's another line of heavy rain just crossing the state line near Terre Haute up towards Rockville. So these showers and storms will continue to stream through. And during the course of the day today, there's a lot of dry hours mixed in. It's not a washout of a day. It's honestly very similar to what we've seen. Some of you see hazy sunshine. The storms come through. You get back into the sunshine because look at what's happening off to the west here. We have a lot of rain still moving right along this stationary front. Temperatures this morning range from the 70s to the south, 50s to the north, and that's where those showers are moving. They're moving right along that temperature contrast with the cooler air to the north and the warmer air down to the south. So once again, overall highs today will be climbing into the 70s and 80s, putting us above normal. Still a little muggy out there, but certainly as you walk out the door, be weather aware today as there is the potential for severe storms once again, and have that umbrella handy.
Todd, thank you. Still ahead, a state of emergency in Ohio where neighbors have been ripped apart by tornadoes. What officials say about the 1 death linked to the storm so far.
Plus, celebrating 70 years of RTV6 history. The stories that stick with Dion Willis after her decade on the desk. That's coming up.
Hiring Hoosiers only on RTV6.
Welcome back to Good Morning Indiana. Time now is 5:11. Here's a look at I-465 at West 71st Street. Some overnight road work underway right now. Keep an eye on this area for you as we get into rush hour. You can see those right lanes are restricted, so I'll let you know when this opens back up for your morning drive.
Elena, thank you. This is the kind of damage people all across Ohio are dealing with this morning after an EF3 tornado touched down near Dayton Monday night.
The debris so thick, snow plows were used to clear highways and let emergency crews through. In nearby Salina, a tornado destroyed home after home and killed an 81-year-old man. Officials say a car was lifted up by the storm and thrown onto his house.
First things I thought of was war zone, because it just looked like somebody just took a bomb and...
A state of emergency has now been declared in 3 western Ohio counties. The tornadoes were some of 55 that meteorologists believe touched down all across the Midwest Monday night, including 4 here in Indiana.
And as flooding remains a problem for residents in Arkansas and Oklahoma along the Arkansas River, 2 officials had to be rescued. Army engineers were working near a dam on the river when somehow they got stuck. A helicopter was brought in to get them to safety. Shelters have now been opened as hundreds of homes are now flooded and more expected to be damaged by river water as it rises today. Netflix is getting involved in the abortion legislation debate, threatening to pull production from Georgia.
The state's governor recently signed a bill banning abortions after a fetal heartbeat can be detected. Netflix is the first studio to weigh in, vowing to help the ACLU fight the new law. The law is not set to go into effect until January 1st, but if it does, Netflix says it will reevaluate various projects currently filming in Georgia. Georgia is one of the most popular places to film TV shows and movies because of big tax credits offered. It has been a while since we've seen a truly bad first pitch, but this one definitely qualifies.
It doesn't make it to home plate, instead going way left and right and into the cameraman's face. The reaction is immediate. The White Sox catcher puts his head in his hands. The woman throws hers up in the air. She actually works for the White Sox and was named Employee of the Month. The memorable moment was captured by the photographer who snapped this picture right before the ball came flying towards him.
Oh, no. Well, obviously she didn't get Employee for the Month for being the best pitcher.
I didn't get to see the video. What did she do? She just threw it up in the air?
No, she pegged the photographer that was 2 feet next to her.
Yeah.
I was
Not
reading,
2
so I
feet,
couldn't
but 10
watch.
feet.
Yeah, no, it was rough. Yeah.
Who was the guy?
But,
well, who was it? Nelly that had like the previous worst pitch when he was at Citi Field. He threw it way over to the side.
I don't know.
Too.
I just have to say, as a Cubs fan, what do you expect from someone who works for the White Sox?
Shots fired.
Would you be able to get it to home plate?
Probably not.
Yes.
I only lasted 1 season playing softball.
I will say it didn't look like there were a whole lot of people in the stands. So a lot of people probably didn't see it live. All right, outside right now, we're dealing with some thunderstorms moving through. Nothing severe, but this is a pretty good storm that's making its way through Tipton right now with a lot of lightning, and some heavier rain extends to the north and south of this heavier thunderstorm as well. And I put this hail tracker on, and you can look and see a little bit of dark gray here just to the west of Tipton, and that's indicating that there is some hail involved with this system. It is pretty small because it's not severe, but nonetheless, don't be surprised if you're watching us here this morning in Tipton and eventually here off towards the east in places like Cicero and Elwood, over towards the Frankton area. If you hear the thunder, you see the lightning, and you have the heavy rain and a little bit of hail mixed in as this storm makes its way through the area. There's another storm just north of Terre Haute now, and all these are going to basically go in the same direction, and that's because there's a temperature contrast across the area with some cooler air to the north and some warmer air to the south, and I'll show this to you in just a second. But all these storms are basically going to move in the same area. So this morning it's going to be pretty active north of Indianapolis. Keep that in mind if you do walk out the door here within the next few minutes. And then there are some storms down in southern Illinois that eventually will start to make their way into the area as well. Now, the Storm Prediction Center has almost the entire state under the slight risk for severe weather, but notice this enhanced risk once again is off to our west, just off to our west. So certainly it's going to potentially be another active day for us with rounds of showers and storms making their way through the area. These storms, the main impact would be damaging wind and the potential for hail, but can't completely rule out the chance of an isolated tornado once again. So the first wave comes through, and then additional storms will start to flare up throughout the afternoon and evenings. The middle half of the day today is probably potentially going to be the driest time frame that we have going for this Wednesday. 68 degrees right now, a little bit of a breeze out of the west-northwest at 9 miles per hour. And here's that temperature contrast I was mentioning. 10 degrees difference between Lafayette and Indianapolis. So that doesn't seem like a lot, but that's exactly where that storm is currently moving through. So once you work your way even further to the south, we're in the 70s. So overall today, it's certainly not a washout, but again, there will be chances of storms at any point throughout the day today, with highs eventually climbing up into the low to mid 80s. Now tomorrow, it's a little bit cooler. Again, we have some storms in the morning hours, but then just mostly cloudy throughout the afternoon. But tomorrow's pretty much the last hurrah for the super active weather days that we have across the area. You notice the showers and storms will be with us off and on throughout the day tomorrow. And then we finally get a push of rain moving through as we head into the evening hours. And once that finally goes through, we have a very nice stretch of weather that is going to take us into the weekend. Friday's a terrific day. 78 and sunny. Some spotty storms possible on Saturday, but not the kind of storms that we've been dealing with. More just the pop-up variety here and there. And then Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, look at that. Seasonable with sunshine in the forecast. Elena?
All right, thank you, Todd. Here's a look at downtown. Right now, the westbound lanes, the two right lanes are blocked on westbound I-70 at I-65. This is in the south split. Now, this was referred to as a traffic hazard, and it's involving a semi, as we can see. Working to gather more information right now, but you can see traffic is moving through pretty slowly. So I'll keep an eye on this area for you and, of course, let you know what's going on. Let's take a look at the map. I'll point this area out to you. So this is downtown, that right lane blocked, westbound I-70 at I-65 in the south split. Traffic slowed down through this area. So if this is part of your drive, if you're watching this right now, leave earlier than you typically would. Let's take another look at those roads right now. This is up on the northwest side, I-465 at West 71st Street. Some overnight road work underway. You can see those right lanes are restricted in those southbound lanes, but all is moving along just fine.
Elena, thank you. RTV6 is very proud to be celebrating our 70th anniversary this week. We first broadcast on the air back on May 30th, 1949.
To mark this occasion, we had the chance to talk with many Channel 6 alums about their most memorable moments and stories. You saw Dion Willis on the air here for 14 years as an anchor, but she was also a reporter who cared deeply about the stories and people that she covered.
One story that touched her profoundly was the disappearance of a little girl in 1994 whose body was then found 2 months later.
LaShauna Bates was a little 11-year-old girl. She disappeared on her way to school on a very cold February morning, and they found her body. You couldn't say no to her principal, Phyllis Imel, School 46. And so I covered the whole searching, the work with the police department, work in the community, back in the classroom where her little desk was stayed just as she'd left it. And they kept it empty there, waiting for her with all of her things there, hoping that she would return, which she never did. The beautiful little pigtailed girl. And she was about the age of Min at that time, my older son. And I never could ever forget this little girl who'd had a hard life right from the start, was never allowed to live her life. And so it's stories like that, whether they have to do with education or whether they have to do with just great, ordinary people. I mean, I've interviewed presidents and first ladies and it's stars and all of that, but it's the ordinary people and the stories that really matter to me. And I think they have to matter if you're a journalist, because that's what life is. Journalism is the rough draft of history, and you need to tell those stories in order to tell the truth about the world and the life that we live.
You can see Dion back on the anchor desk along with Clyde Lee tomorrow night. They will host our 1-hour anniversary special, 70 years together, RTV6 working for you. That's tomorrow night at 7 p.m.
And coming up tonight on the news at 6, paying tribute to a man not seen on air all very often, but one who made a huge impact on the development of our news operation. We're talking about Bob Gamble, the unique send-off the staff gave him when he retired, coming up tonight at 6. Still ahead, drivers racing through neighborhood streets have residents on edge. The road rage arrest they hope will change things, and the action they are taking to keep people safe. That's coming up in 10 minutes.
Plus, going through airport security can be a hassle, but it's actually costing some passengers. How much money was left behind at checkpoints after the break.
Furniture and mattress store, Ashley Home Store.
Welcome back to Good Morning Indiana. Time now is 5:25. Here's a look at I-65 at the south split. So actually, these are the westbound lanes of I-70 heading into I-65. You can see that semi over on the side. I just spoke with ISP Dispatch, and they say that just a few hoses snapped from the trailer of the semi, but it's not that big of a deal as they quoted. So this should be cleared up pretty soon as you're making your way to work.
Elena, thank you. It's one of the most common things you hear at airport security is everything out of your pockets. Well, people seem to be listening because last year they took out loose change and left nearly $1 million behind. I'll be right over to the airport to collect that. The Transportation Security Administration says $960,000 in pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters was left behind and unclaimed. That money is actually used for new checkpoint signs and maintenance. The airports that leave the most change behind are some of the largest: JFK Airport in New York, LAX, and Chicago O'Hare.
Now to the Indy 500 celebrations that have not stopped just yet. Winner Simon Pagenaud celebrating in New York and getting the honor of opening NASDAQ training. Afterwards, he took a stroll with his winning wreath through Times Square, but he wasn't alone. His Instagram famous dog Norman along for the ride. The trip also included a stop for Norman's favorite lunch, sushi. I'll take some sushi right now, but is
that safe for dogs?
I was gonna say, is it good for dogs?
Maybe it's a French thing. I don't know.
He
I don't have a dog,
he probably
so
eats caviar then too.
It sounds like he's
so
it before,
fancy.
Yeah,
doing
man,
right.
Norman living a better life than us.
He is.
All right, outside right now, we're dealing with storms already this morning. Nothing severe, but some of you may have been dealing with the thunder waking you up this morning. Here's what's left of this storm moving out of Tipton, pushing towards Alexandria and Hartford City. Right now, another storm making its way through Rockville as well as Covington. And there's more rain back off to our west. We'll deal with several rounds of showers and storms today, so make sure you stay weather aware. There is the potential a few could be strong to severe. The time now is 5:27. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Is working for you. This is Good Morning Indiana, working for you.
The man charged in the death of Boone County Deputy Jacob Pickett will be back in front of a judge today.
Our Aaron Lish is live this morning with what's expected to happen inside the courtroom. Plus, cleanup from tornadoes across the Hoosier State will take days.
New this morning why the storms here in Indiana are part of a record-setting outbreak. But first, it is a Storm Team 6 alert day. Thanks for joining us. I'm Nicole Griffin.
And I'm Meredith Barrick. We do have a few storms moving through right now, but no severe weather out there. That's the good news. Todd, you do say, though, there is a chance for severe weather later today we need to look out for.
Yeah, the Storm Prediction Center has almost the whole state under the slight risk for severe weather during the day today. I think the better chance of the severe storms is probably during the daytime hours, but certainly some heavy rainfall and a lot of lightning making its way through parts of the area this morning. Here's some heavy rain now from Elwood up to Fairmount, and you can see the lightning there as well. That storm has also produced a little bit of small hail. Not severe, but it's heading towards Hartford City as well as Muncie. Then a pretty good storm as well just went through Rockville with a lot of lightning and heavy rain. Then you also noticed the rain stretching up US 41 towards the Vetersburg and Covington area. So this first wave is moving through. More storms off to our west. That too will make its way through the area. We'll keep an eye on this batch of heavier rain. It's through southern Illinois. That'll start to move into southern areas. But the storms right now are moving right along this temperature gradient. 50s and low 60s to the north compared to 70s from Rushville towards the Bloomington area. So it depends where you are here this morning and the temperatures that you're seeing. Overall, though, it's a very summer-like day. There's almost a chance of isolated storms at any point throughout the day today, with high temperatures, Elaine, eventually climbing up into into the low 80s.
All right, thank you, Todd. So take a look at this right now behind me. These are the westbound lanes of I-70 right out of I-65 at the south split. So you can see this semi is pulled over. Small little diesel fuel spill with this semi that's pulled over, so that right lane is blocked. So keep this in mind if it's part of your drive. Now, ISP dispatch tells me it's not that big of a deal, so hopefully this will be cleared up pretty soon for your morning drive. This area on our map is in the downtown. Let's take a look at that right now. So this is downtown, right? The right lane blocked, westbound I-70 at I-65. So keep this in mind if it's part of your drive. One last look at the roads. Here's I-465 at 71st Street. You can see there was some overnight road work, but those cones have been lifted, so everything's moving along just fine, just in time for rush hour. Coming up in the next 20 minutes or so, I'll point out some closures still from yesterday's storm damage.
All right, Elena, thank you. The man accused of murdering a Boone County deputy 1 year ago may spend the rest of his life in prison.
Court documents show a plea deal on the table for 21-year-old Anthony Baumgart. Our Aaron Lish is live in Lebanon as this case goes before the judge this morning. Aaron, good morning.
Good morning. So Anthony Baumgart, he is facing the death penalty, and his trial is set for 2020, but that could change if he accepts this plea bargain. So according to the motion filed by the state yesterday, if Baumgart pleads guilty for the murder of Deputy Jacob Pickett, he could be sentenced to life in prison without the chance of ever being released. If he accepts this deal, the state will drop the death penalty. Baumgart is accused of shooting Deputy Pickett last March after running away from law enforcement here in Lebanon. He then shot the 34-year-old deputy before being shot by a police officer. Not long after that, Baumgart said he had no remorse for Pickett's death. The change of plea hearing will begin at 9 this morning. I will be in the courtroom to see what unfolds there. You can follow us online through social media and on air to have the latest updates. I'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Aaron, thank you so much. Several communities across the state will be spending the days ahead cleaning up from Memorial Day tornadoes. The National Weather Service confirms tornadoes touched down in several Indiana counties, including in Grant County. Meteorologists say an EF2 tornado left more than 4 miles of destruction. The tornado destroyed Don Sweet's rental home, 2 barns, his sister's home, and it blew away her garage. Aside from all the damage, though, Don says the car inside that garage is barely damaged at all.
It was pretty weird to see a car that didn't have a dent in it, but laying right next to our house in the garage, and the garage blew away.
EMA officials say at least 4 homes are destroyed in Grant County. No one inside the homes were injured.
The tornado outbreak that hit portions of the Hoosier State is part of a record outbreak. This week, the U.S. tied its current record of 11 consecutive days with at least 8 tornadoes per day. The last time the country saw this many consecutive days with at least 8 tornadoes was back in June of 1980. The Storm Prediction Center says they've received 934 tornado reports so far this year, and more than half of those are within the last 30 days. 38 people have died in tornadoes so far this year. No deaths have been reported in Indiana.
An arrest and road rage investigation highlighting an issue in a Southwest Side neighborhood. People say drivers speeding down their street are putting their families' lives at risk. They live off of Kellogg Drive near Mills Road. Neighbors there say people drive much faster than the posted 30-mile-per-hour speed limit, threatening their property and their lives.
I got kids out here every day that play. My wife, she walks up and down this place. And I used to be able to park my work truck right there out on the street, and it was there maybe 6 months or so, and then it got sideswiped.
The speeding drivers have some people who live there hoping for speed bumps to be put in. For that to happen, though, you have to make a request to DPW and then get 75% of your neighbors to sign on in a petition. For more information on what it takes to get traffic calming measures like speed bumps in your neighborhood, look for this story right now on the RTV6 News app.
A couple accused of torturing and killing a 12-year-old boy facing several charges in Monroe County. Eduardo Pozo died last Friday. The family stayed in a Bloomington hotel because his parents traveled across the country for work, advertising for a circus. Police believe the boy died of starvation. The coroner says he only weighed about 55 pounds. They also think his father and his stepmother restrained him with chains and used a shock collar on him. Investigators say this is one of the worst cases of abuse they have ever seen.
Before I became sheriff, I worked for 20 years, pretty much exclusively with child abuse cases, and I've worked some pretty horrendous ones, but this certainly is, it is beyond anything that I work.
Police arrested Luis Pozo and Diane Medina Flores. They are expected to appear in court on Friday.
We're now learning more about a plan to convert more than 8 miles of Indianapolis Railroad tracks into a trail connecting the Circle City to Fishers in Noblesville. Indy has submitted a grant proposal to the state of Indiana detailing its exact plans. About half of the planned trail is expected to cost a total of nearly $5.5 million, with the grant footing about 65% of that. Construction on the first part of the trail is expected to start in 2021. It will connect 62nd Street to 96th Street. Eventually, the Nickel Plate Trail will go from the state fairgrounds all the way north to downtown Noblesville.
Good news for jobs in the Hoosier State. The state says Indiana's labor force grew again last month, continuing a record streak of improvement. The Indiana Department of Workforce Development says our labor force now stands at nearly 3.5 million. That counts both those who have a job and those who are actively searching for one. Year over year, more than 37,000 Hoosiers have joined the labor force since April of 2018. Indiana's unemployment rate in April stayed the same from March at 3.6%. It is 5:38 right now. Todd, it is a Storm Team 6 alert day.
Yeah, once again, storms are in the forecast. Really, at any point throughout the day today, you'll have the potential of some storms making their way through the area. We have some right now, but I think we get a little bit of a break in the middle half of the day, and then they kind of ramp up later on this evening. The Storm Prediction Center has a slight risk for severe weather out for everybody, with wind and hail the main threats. I think the better potential for severe storms will be later on this afternoon during the peak heating compared to the storms that we have out there right now. But this storm has had the history of producing some small hail, moving now through Alexandria as well as Fairmount, pushing towards Gaston, over towards Hartford City. Some heavier downpours and a little bit of lightning here near Crawfordsville as well as Rockville. And there's more rain off to the west, and this will all come streaming through initially here this morning. So as you walk out the door, make sure you have the umbrella. Also, download the Storm Shield app from the App Store. It's free. You can pinpoint your location on it and alert you to any watches or warnings that get issued here throughout the day today.
Todd, thank you. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell thrown a hypothetical question. Straight ahead, why his answer has some saying he's playing partisan political games.
Plus, could flavored e-cigs lead to heart problems? We're breaking down the results of a new study straight ahead on Good Morning Indiana. Elena.
And here's a look at I-70 at I-65 at the South Split. That semi pulled over in those right lanes. Small little diesel spill with it. It should be cleared up pretty soon for your drive. The good news, traffic is moving along just fine around it, but if this is part of your drive, be aware. Time now 5:40. You're watching RTV6. Stay with us.
Or use Car Search today at Carfax.com.
The suspect in last month's deadly synagogue shooting in Poway, California, pleads not guilty. Prosecutors say John Earnest entered not guilty pleas to more than 100 counts he's facing. They include attempts to kill and obstruction of religious beliefs resulting in death or bodily injury, which can lead to the death penalty. Earnest is accused of opening fire at the synagogue last month, killing one woman and leaving 3 others injured. He's also a suspect in an earlier arson at a nearby mosque.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell was thrown a hypothetical question at a luncheon in Kentucky. His answer has many saying he's playing partisan political games. Let's take a listen.
We'd fill it.
When President Barack Obama nominated Merrick Garland to the Supreme Court in 2016 following the death of Justice Antonin Scalia, McConnell blocked him because it was a presidential election year. But McConnell says since the same party rules the Senate and executive branch, that precedent won't apply during next year's election.
Struggling communities here in the U.S. will have to wait longer for federal assistance. Yesterday, a bill allowing more than $19 billion in disaster aid was blocked in the House. The money would help states affected by recent hurricanes, flooding, wildfires, and other natural disasters. Hurricane-ravaged Puerto Rico would also receive millions of dollars in aid. The Senate has already passed the bill, and President Trump says he will sign it. Lawmakers will try again to pass the bill tomorrow.
Severe storms continue to pound parts of the country. On Tuesday, tornadoes put Kansas in their crosshairs. This storm was captured on video by meteorology students near Luray. Thankfully, no damage was reported from this storm. Now, residents in Lawrence, Kansas weren't as lucky. 11 people were injured when a massive tornado hit the city, home to Kansas University. A rare tornado emergency was issued for the city. The city's mayor says dozens of homes were destroyed by the storm. The mayor of Linwood, just east of Lawrence, says parts of his city were completely wiped off the map. And unfortunately, Todd, it does not look like tornado season is close to over whatsoever.
Yeah, you know, we're just kind of getting into peak tornado season here, and we just can't break this weather pattern we've been in. Here in Indiana, it's been the same off to our west, the same off to our east, and it's really not going to change for today or tomorrow. And then eventually, we kind of break it down as we get into the weekend, where we get some pretty good weather here. But as far as what's going on this morning, nothing severe here, but you do notice it's pretty active in spots across the area. This cell has been making its way across the state with heavy rain and a lot of lightning. Just now glancing Gaston pushing towards Hartford City here, and this cell has produced a little bit of hail. As you zoom in here, it's faded off here, but inside that hail tracker, it was producing some pea-sized hail as it was making its way through portions of Grant County. Now, as we look at this heavy downpour just south of Fishers High School there, FHS, and just north of Geist Reservoir, but it is impacting Interstate 69. And as we slide off towards the west, some heavy rain and a lot of lightning just north of US 36 here, going to pass over 231 as it makes its way north of Bainbridge with a lot of heavy rain and lightning, and maybe even a little bit of hail in that cell as well. And all these storms are streaming off towards the northeast, riding along a temperature gradient, but there are more storms off to the south, and this will eventually make its way into southern areas. So I think at least this morning we're dealing with mainly heavy rain in northern locations. As the day goes on, it becomes a little more widespread for everybody, and the Storm Prediction Center has almost the entire state here under the slight risk for severe weather. Wind and hail by far the two highest threats today. Can't completely rule out the chance of an isolated tornado later on this afternoon, but it's lower on the spectrum. It's not the same setup that we had on Monday. The best timing for the severe weather will be during the daytime hours with the peak heating. Yes, we have thunderstorms ongoing right now, but not expecting the severe weather potential until later on today. So here's a TrueCast for you. Notice the heavier rain. The next wave moves in by mid-morning. By the lunch hour, we're starting to die things down. We get into some sunshine, and how much sunshine we break into will kind of determine how big our threat for severe weather is later. The more sunshine we see, the better potential for severe weather. And you notice these isolated storms going to flare up. It's kind of a very similar situation to yesterday when we had all those thunderstorm warnings with wind and hail and heavy rain being the main threats as we worked our way throughout the afternoon and evening hours. Then during the day tomorrow, we'll have the chance of scattered showers moving through as well. 66 right now. I mentioned that temperature gradient. It's only 58 in Lafayette, 66 in Indy. So that's why those storms are moving in that northeasterly direction compared to 74 down in Bloomington. But once again, everybody will kind of get into the storm action at some point throughout the day today. But there are a lot of dry hours mixed in with temperatures eventually climbing up into the 80s. So shower chances remain tomorrow at 76. But then once we get to Friday and really into next week, it's pretty quiet. Could be a few isolated thunderstorms on Saturday, but nothing major. And notice the temperatures running a little bit cooler and more seasonable with highs in the mid to upper 70s. Elena?
All right, thank you, Todd. Couple things to pay attention to. So we still have some closures with that storm damage up in Pendleton, southbound I-69. That exit ramp to State Road 38 is closed right now, as well as US 36 between Maple Street and Pendleton Avenue. So pay attention to those if you are a Pendleton driver. This right lane blocked downtown on westbound I-70 right at I-65 at the south split, and that's because of a small diesel fuel spill. So let's take a look at that right now. You can see that semi pulled over to the right side of the interstate. Traffic's moving through just fine. This should be cleared up relatively soon.
All right, Elena, thank you. A new study suggests that flavored e-cigarettes could lead lead to heart problems. Researchers say flavors can damage cells that line the blood vessels, and that poses a risk for a user's long-term heart health. The study looked at 6 e-liquids with different concentrations of nicotine. Cinnamon and menthol flavors were the most toxic. More studies are needed to prove if vaping is truly harmful, but some policymakers don't want to wait. They're trying to ban vaping flavors, arguing it's a gateway to smoking and other drugs. Vaping advocates say it's an important tool to get smokers off of regular cigarettes.
The top stories on social media are next on Good Morning Indiana. We've got a lot of babies in the trending 6 today, and it includes this cutie and the reason they were so bouncy at the ballpark.
Welcome back to Good Morning Indiana. Time now is 5:53. Here's a look at I-65 at the South Split. You can see that right lane is blocked on westbound I-70. Small diesel fuel spill. It's not causing too much of a problem in terms of traffic flow, though, but I'll keep an eye on it for you. It should clear up pretty soon. Again, we'll keep an eye on this for you as you're making your way to work.
Elena, thank you. Before you head out the door, it's time for the trending 6.
These are some of the stories that everyone is sharing online and you'll want to know about. IHOP is at it again. The restaurant posted this brief video on Twitter this week. It shows IHOP as a name the restaurant chain briefly used last year to promote its new line of burgers, changing back to IHOP. The company then urges fans to learn what could the P be on June 3rd. Some on social media suggested the P stood for publicity stunt. One even wondered if IHOP was looking into entering the presidential race.
Oh, goodness. A New Hampshire man got a big surprise last week when he was bitten by a bat inside his home. The creature seemed to have found a hiding spot inside Roy Syvertson's iPad case.
Oh, no.
The bat bit the 86-year-old man on the finger before he slammed the case back down. Syvertson ended up having to get treatment for rabies because that bat tested positive. Oh, scary.
What? A leisurely boat ride turned into a rescue mission of sorts for this group in California when they came across a baby deer stuck in the water and crying for help. As the boaters approached the deer, it swam toward them. A woman on the boat carefully navigated the rocky shoreline, fawn in tow, and delivered the sweet baby to its mama, who was anxiously waiting on the shore.
And speaking of delivering a baby, a family of 5 became a family of 6 as they made their way to the hospital for what they thought would be a routine prenatal visit. But little Jolie decided she'd waited long enough, and with big brother Jaden filming from the back seat, she came into the world in the front seat of the family car. Wow.
Well, we aren't sure who that baby is, but they sure did enjoy their day at the ballpark. That video taken by Washington journalist Scott Thurman at a Nationals game. He says it was his intermittent obstructed view at the ballpark today, but a pretty cute one.
Oh, fun. Well, we've seen some bad ceremonial first pitches, but we may have a new number 1. The Chicago White Sox team employee winds up and delivers one right at the photographer. Darren George was the man whose camera got plunked, but he is okay and he's still a pro. He still got the shot. See,
That's
Nicole,
so good.
it's bad.
We
That's
told you
really
it was bad. I like the catcher. Watch the catcher. He just goes.
I mean, you think working for a Major League Baseball team, you'd have a little bit more talent than that on the field, but
Catcher just ducking.
pretty funny.
All right, we got some storms moving through this morning. None of the storms are severe here this morning, but certainly some lightning, and we've had some reports of hail moving through central Indiana. So these downpours will continue, especially north of I-70 here for the next few hours, although there is another batch of heavier rain down near Evansville that's going to be making its way into southern sections of central Indiana. And there is the slight risk for severe weather for the day today. So certainly stay weather aware throughout the day today. Temperatures upper 70s to the north, 80s down to the south. If you do see any severe weather, wind and hail will be the 2 main threats, but can't completely rule out the chance of an isolated tornado.
Todd, thank you. Extra security will be back at Noblesville West Middle School today following a social media threat. Ahead at 6 o'clock, why parents say the school shooting nearly a year ago is still fresh on students' mind.
And all new and hiring Hoosiers, I take you to the Nonprofit Academy teaching anyone to code. How 1150 Academy is working to help Hoosiers learn this critical skill and fill 1,000 jobs. That's coming up.